Hey, Dustin Tibbetts here, financial advisor with Jazz Wealth. We're talking tariffs today. That was a very radio kind of voice. Hey, Dustin Tibbetts here. Hey, I'm also trying the $1.9 billion drink, apparently. It's not bad, actually. I think it's really got nothing in it, but it's pretty good. I wish it had caffeine, but I'm told they make one. Anyways, we're financial advisors here at Jazz Wealth, and we talk about the stock markets, retirement planning, all that stuff. And tariffs, we're going to break it down, try to make it simple. I'll give you a few examples here so that instead of reading headlines and getting all fired up, you can go, hey, that's how that really works. We have 25% tax. A tariff is a tax, right? 25% tariff coming on vehicles and vehicle parts that are not made in the United States. That's the headline. Okay, cool. Now, initially on April 2nd, only fully finished vehicles will get that tax, right? So there's an on-ramp to getting this fully implemented, assuming that they actually continue with this. Okay. Now, it breaks down a little bit further, and we're going to show some stocks and stuff so you can see how different auto companies are getting hit here. So Mexico and Canada, inside this new tariff plan, I don't know if it has a name, right? But the tariffs, inside of Mexico and Canada, they will only get taxed the 25% on the portion of the value of stuff that's in the car or truck that was not made in the United States. So it's not just going to be a flat, that car comes over, it's 25%. Like cars made in Mexico, we'll go over some examples. It's only the part that wasn't made in the United States. There's a whole lot of problems here, but we'll go through that because it's a lot more complex than this. Start with an example, an obvious example. The Mercedes C300. You think you're cool. You're going to get yourself a Mercedes, but you're going to get the basic one. You see what I'm saying? That's made in Germany, right? Everything is made outside the U.S. So that entire car, when it finds its way to the U.S., will be taxed 25%. Now, Mercedes has said they figure that that's going to cause a price burden to them of anywhere from 6 to 8%. Now, they can choose to find other ways, lower the quality, lower their margins, make less money. I don't know. Either way, that hurts the stock, right? So it's a problem. That's an easy example. Let's give you a little more complex one. The F-250, that big old truck that so many people here in Florida have, and it's flat, so I'm not sure what we're doing. Anyways, the F-250 is made in America, but the engine is made in Canada, Ontario. So what's going to happen there is the value of the engine, right, less the cost to build it and everything, is going to be taxed at 25%. Well, there's parts in that engine. So what if some of the parts in the engine, Ontario imported from the U.S., so it's a U.S.-made part. So we're saying inside the engine, right, 10% of those products, or the parts, are actually sourced from the U.S., which means that 90% of the value of the engine is going to get taxed at 25%, or a total tax rate of 22.5. Okay, it's not 25%, but you could see how, hey, that still adds up. Nobody wants to be taxed that much. So a little bit of a problem for them. Now, right now, under the USMCA, which 2021 or somewhere when that came in, these parts are exempt. So it's really not a problem for Ford now, but if these tariffs stick, it's a real long-term problem for them, and they need to adjust. So that's the F-250. A fun one that always comes up, you probably saw it on TV, the Chevy Blazer. All right, Chevy Blazer, still making them. I used to have one when I was a kid. That's actually made in Mexico. So the Chevy Blazer gets about 40% of its parts sourced from the U.S., right? Even though it's made in Mexico there. So in other words, 60% of the Chevy Blazer would be taxed at 25%, or you'd have a total tax rate. What did that come out to? Is that 15%? 25, maybe 60% times 25, 15%. So 15% of the truck's value. Not so bad. That's not 25%. But again, they weren't paying that before. And it's like, okay, we have to figure something out. Now, if we look, this is all I could get, but these are all the light vehicles combined together, and we say what percentage of that is produced anywhere else besides America, right? We're basically at 25%. So a quarter of all vehicles here are going to get taxed, or they're going to be a part of this 25% tax. So Edmunds, and I believe they're being a little bit generous here. They said, well, average vehicle prices are going to rise 6% from 48,039. That is the current average price there. But remember, that's a minimum because a lot of these parts are not made in the US. Here's a really complex example, and this is how this goes. I'm going to use a seat in a car because it's easy to explain, but could be any number of different parts. Stellantis. Stellantis is the public company. They make like Chrysler and Dodge and Jeep and Ram. It's all one big company. Well, let's say they've got the seat in your new Dodge Ram. You got the big fancy seat. It's got coolers in it. It moves back and forth, maybe a lumbar massage or something like that. The seat is headed to Detroit to get assembled. And while it's there, there's a module that comes in so when you put your finger on the button down there and your seat slides forwards and backwards, well, there's a module, and inside of that is chips, and it was made outside the U.S. So it gets taxed. They put that sucker into the thing and they go, okay, great. We did what we need to do. Send it down to Mexico because they do the leather, maybe put more support in there, whatever they do down there. All right. They put it together. Then they send it up to Canada because Canada puts seatbelts in there. That's their specialty. They're the best and the best, right? That original chip inside the module just crossed the border 3 different times. It would technically, not as of right now, but as this becomes an official thing, technically it gets taxed 25% 3 different times. And that's just one example of a seat, right? And again, it's just an example, but you see that happens. Like Boeing. You ever seen like the supply chain of Boeing put on a map? They don't just have one factory where the plane gets built and all the parts that they need are inside that factory. It's not possible, right? So they get parts from all over, then they'll send a part back and like attach it. And these guys over here have the certification to put the little thing in the wing or whatever, and then they bring it back. We're crossing the border numerous times. It sounds very inefficient, but obviously it's more efficient than just doing it in the US. Otherwise, these are public companies. They would be chasing that dollar. If that meant buying a place in Missouri and doing it all right there, and they could make a fraction of a penny more, they would do it. So what do we got here? Here is the performance, or at least as of the tariffs there, of what we have of these different stocks. Now, a lot of these are not U.S. traded stocks, so I put that on there for you as well. So you could, if you see a ticker symbol you're not familiar with, you know where it's at. The companies like Hyundai and Kia, who have the greatest portion of their vehicle made outside the U.S. and or just don't make it here in the U.S., they're getting hit the worst. If you look at somebody like Aston Martin, okay, well, that makes sense, right? There's no Aston Martin factory in Wichita, Kansas. There's parts of assembly there, but no, they are going to get hit more as well. You got Tata Motors, which has kind of been out of the news for a while. General Motors, which has issues there as well. They're hit harder. And you can see something like a Tesla not hit very hard. Renault is another kind of a Stellantis big conglomerate there. And so, yeah, there's a bit of a problem. But now what's the market doing? They're going through and doing what we just said, getting the data on all of this. What is the actual tax going to be? And what will their hit to earnings be? It's fascinating to watch these research analysts just go to town on this. So hopefully that helps you. It's not necessarily something that we're financial advisors, right? We want to help people with the long-term vision. But with things happening in the short term, I just love talking about it, studying it, and teaching you guys all about it. Hope you check us out at jazzwealth.com if you want someone to help you out with all that volatility in your 401k or IRA, or you're just getting started. That's cool too. You can set up a call and chat with us, or just go to the website and get going. Adios.